Okay, what is going on? A lot going on football-wise. Anthony Richardson says goodbye to the season. Kyler Murray says hello. Rodger Goddell is going nowhere. And Caleb Williams stories popping up left and right we will dive into. But first, subscribe to the podcast with me, John Middlekauff, 3 and Out Podcast, wherever you may listen, Apple, Spotify, we're everywhere. If you're watching this on the YouTube, make sure you subscribe to that as well. Leave a comment, smash the subscribe button. And thevolume.com, thevolume.com. We got merch, 3 and Out hats, flex fits, as well as trucker hats. So go check that out. But before we dive into some meaty football talk, I wanted to tell you about a friend of the program, the official ticketing app of this show. They go by Gametime. If you grab your smartphone, I need you to go to your app store. Do you want to go outside? Do you want to get some fresh air? Do you live in Texas or Philadelphia? Do you want to go to the World Series? I know the two teams haven't even won yet, though a Texas team is going to win no matter what in the AL. Phillies are going to the World Series. You want to go to an NFL game? You want to go to a college game? You live in Michigan, Ohio State? You want to go check out your squad for the big game? I know it's a little while away. Use Gametime, the official ticketing app of this podcast. And when you sign up for your first pair of tickets, has interactive ticketing map with fantastic price point. Interactive, gives you seat views of where you'd be sitting. Cannot recommend them enough. Gametime. Use the promo code John. 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 Big hockey guy. Are you a big hockey guy? I've been to one career hockey game, and it was in a 4,000 person stadium. Now, it was the NHL, but it wasn't quite a great experience. I would recommend you going to one. Better experience. MSG, LA. Go see a sweet hockey team. Philly, Boston. And use my promo code John. Gametime. Do it right now. Okay, let's dive into Anthony Richardson. When you take a big swing on a project, which I will never not support, though the draft has shown for every project that hits, 10 misses. But I have no problem in life, let alone a draft, swinging for the fences. I respect anyone who's willing to essentially put their balls on the table and take a huge swing. And that's what the Colts did in this draft. And they were really good with their messaging. No one really saw it coming. They had the perfect coach for it. And they took a guy with 13 career starts. And beside the Utah game, a lot of really, really ugly tape. But as everyone told me in the league during the draft process, the more people talked to him, the more they liked him. And when you really looked at his film, there was a lot to like. And then for us, casuals, I watch a lot of, college football, but I don't break it down like I once did. I'm not watching every snap of a guy in all 22 tape. And ultimately, I talk for a living now. I'm not setting draft boards. I thought Anthony Richardson was intriguing the more and more I heard. And then I watched him play, not just in the preseason, but the 4 games. Now, a couple of those he didn't finish because he got KO'd in. It was hard to not watch him with a Colts uniform in September and not go, I get it. I see why they did it. Now, I don't know if it was going to work, and obviously it's still going to have to play itself out. But I think when he was on the field, and I'm sure in practice, they felt this, we feel really, really good about this. Here's the problem. And the number one thing we talk about when you draft a guy high is the rookie contract. If he becomes Mahomes, if he becomes Trevor Lawrence, if he becomes Justin Herbert, hell, if he becomes Tua, whoever, you just have him on a cost-controlled contract at under $10 million a season. That's if you get the guy obviously really high. If you get the guy in the second or third round, it's easily the best contract in all of the sport. So Anthony Richardson, the huge benefit for him was the contract, right? And over year 2 and year 3, you can take advantage of that with free agency signings. You have more salary cap because you're not investing in the quarterback. But the key to make that, and I always laugh because when the 49ers drafted Trey Lance, they never shut up about the quarterback contract. And it's like, well, if he's not good, I don't care whether you're paying him $7 or $700 million. It's kind of irrelevant. You need the guy to be good. So once Anthony Richardson started showing signs of life, it went, well, we really got something. Now we need to develop him. Because I think a lot of parallels. Now, Anthony Richardson to me is a much, much better prospect than Trey Lance was a couple years ago and showed way more physical characteristics on an NFL field. But like him, he hasn't played 13 games in college. Now he's gone for the season. And a lot like Josh Allen, he needed a lot of work. And I'm a huge believer, and this goes back to where I got my degree, higher education, Cal Poly Mustangs. The motto of the school was learn by doing. And it's very applicable to me because I don't learn that well in a classroom. I don't learn that well on a whiteboard. I'm not huge into theories. Like if you do this, then this will happen. If this happens, then that will happen. I'm a big believer of being in the trenches. You want a podcast? Start fucking podcasting. You want to start a YouTube channel? Start YouTubing. You want to run a landscaping business? Get out there and do it. You're going to make mistakes, but that's how you learn. That's how you improve. And that's how you master your craft or improve. I don't know if Anthony Richardson was ever going to master his craft, but the only way to develop as a quarterback was to play. And in football, unlike for, say, baseball or basketball, you don't have that many games. So not only are the games very important, but practice is very important. So Anthony Richardson now is going to miss however many games, right? 4 minus 17. You're talking 12, 13 games, but he's also going to miss the amount of practices on a weekly basis, implementing the game plan, practicing with other NFL people, practicing against an NFL defense on a daily basis. Like the improvement that Josh Allen had from year 1 to year 2, I'm sure if you sat down and had some beers with him, he'd say, listen, obviously the games are a big deal, but going through every single day, individual, team, group, in practice for, whatever, 3.5 straight months in the NFL is a really big deal. And now Anthony Richardson loses that. Now, forever, the old adage was, if you're an inaccurate player in college, you're going to be inaccurate in the pros. It's somewhat been disproven by Josh Allen, but I would still live by that kind of mindset. Inaccurate guys aren't all of a sudden going to be like, God, this guy's turned into like Drew Brees meets Steve Young. But it's clearly much easier to improve on your accuracy in modern day football because of the rules. They can't hit any of the wide receivers. So wide receivers, I think it's fair to say, are more open now than ever before. That doesn't mean you still don't need to layer throws, throw guys open, and have accuracy to your throws. But it's not quite, 1987 playing the Bears or the Giants here. And I think it's devastating. Obviously, Anthony Richardson, the positive on him the next several years was we got him on a cost-controlled contract, and we can build a very, very good team around him. But part of doing that is he needs to be good. And you have a setback like this. When you go into next year, how can you just assume he's going to be vastly improved? Now, like everyone that watched him play, he was very impressive. But he wasn't impressive enough that, like, if he was on a really good team, you were just going to make the playoffs. Right? He had a long way to go. He was not a very accurate guy. His athleticism immediately translated. To me, I understand once you see him in an NFL jersey, kind of the Cam Newton comps, right? Listen, he's going to miss some throws, but physically as a runner, elite, arm strength, elite, and just try to figure it out and coach him up as time goes. And you got Shane Steichen, who's worked with their attributes are different from Anthony Richardson to Jalen. Jalen, to me, is more of a patient runner. Has a good go ball, but I wouldn't say he has a super powerful arm. But he definitely improved dramatically over his time with Shane Steichen. That was clearly the mindset and the idea behind drafting Anthony Richardson. But this injury is a huge setback, and it can derail, the early part of his career. There's no way around it, and you just can't sugarcoat it. It's devastating. And when he was injured and he was going to miss the game last week, obviously this news hadn't broken yet. But to me, the moment I was flipping channels and you get to the Jags Colts game and he's sitting there in a sling, you knew this guy wasn't coming back very soon. And I think there was a comment last week where Shane Steichen dropped a "we'll see" when he'll be back. And then obviously their kooky owner breaks the news, to one of the local reporters. So I feel for you Colts fans. It does in a weird way feel like you're in, you sold your soul for Peyton Manning. And it's been kind of weird ever since. Now, you did have 3 cool years with Andrew Luck, but then it got weird with him. And then obviously the last however many years is the revolving door before Anthony Richardson. And it still doesn't feel great right now. It's like, because the one thing that's fascinating, I've always been fascinated by a couple things in sports. Like in baseball, for example, you could meet or watch a guy that's like 6'4", 225 pounds, but he doesn't throw hard. I remember Joe Blanton was really big, but he could only throw like 90 miles an hour. And then you find some small guys like Tim Lincecum or Tim Hudson when he was younger, or obviously Pedro Martinez, and they just throw gas. And a lot has to do with, the muscles, maybe your fingers are a little longer, some of your tendons are a little stronger. I don't know the exact, breakdown of the body behind it, but clearly there's a reason why some big guys don't throw that hard. Madison Bumgarner never threw over 95 miles an hour, and he's built like an NFL defensive end. And I've always been fascinated by guys in football, and I've seen it when I was in college around Ryan Matthews. Ryan Matthews, not naked, but like in a pair of slider kind of warm-up shorts, looked like a fucking Greek god at 19, 20 years old. And he did all through his NFL career. That guy is one of the biggest freaks I've ever been around, college or pro. He always got hurt for whatever reason. And there were other guys, college and in the NFL, that would get hit and just get back up. And I don't know. There's some muscle composition. Hell, look at Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey is chiseled, gets injured a lot. And some guys don't. And the one thing you'd be concerned with Richardson, for whatever reason, I thought a couple of the hits, the concussion hit. Now, concussions can be a little weird, right? How you ultimately land, on the ground in your head, the whiplash. But even the hit that hurt his shoulder, looked a little innocuous. It didn't look like, that's a vicious season ender right there. That is not how it looked. So that would also make me a little nervous because for whatever reason, some guys are just kind of unfazed. Cam Newton's a good example. Like for a long period of time, just didn't really get injured. And then toward the end, obviously in his early 30s, it kind of took its toll. But for a long period of time, dude was a tank. And Anthony Richardson, 4 games in, season over. And he had another injury as well. So it really sucks. And I feel for Colts fans. The NFL season is going strong. And DraftKings Sportsbook is hooking up new customers with an offer that's even stronger. Bet $5 on any game this week to score $200 instantly in bonus bets. And DraftKings isn't stopping there. All customers can take advantage of a sweetener offer every game day this October. Get in on the game day greatness. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use the code JOHN, J-O-H-N. New customers can score $200 instantly in bonus bets when you bet 5 on the NFL. That's code JOHN only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. The crown is yours. Now, speaking of something that's pretty fascinating is this Kyler Murray story. Because obviously coming into the season, we all thought this team was going to suck. And while their record is not good, they're 1-5. If you've watched them play, and for some reason, and it's not because I live here, I feel like I've watched the majority of the Cardinals snaps. They've been good, man. I mean, they have played. Their worst game of the year was probably last week against Sean McVay, soon to be dad, who kind of kicked their ass. But for the most part, they played good against the Niners. They obviously beat the Cowboys. They played good for about 2.5 quarters against the Giants. They've just played really, really hard. Now, it's easy to play hard, whether high school football, college football, or the NFL early in a season. Once you get to the point where you're like 2-10, are you playing as hard December 1st? Maybe not. But clearly, there's a lot of talk about them with a quarterback kind of starting over. They have a new GM. They have a new coach. And then all of a sudden, I look on social media today and I see Kyler Murray back at practice, as well as Budda Baker. Now, this doesn't mean he's going to play Sunday. They have a 21-day window where they have to activate him to the roster. And here's the thing. If Kyler Murray, obviously, we got to see how he looks at practice. We don't. We're never going to see it. But the coaching staff, if he's healthy, how his knee responds. Like tomorrow will be a big day. I mean, if you're listening to this, it's Thursday. How his knee swelled up. So you're going to get 10-plus days of just pure evaluation. But to me, close to that 21 days, it's like, actually, he's pretty healthy. Knees responded. Looks pretty good. What do? And Michael Lombardi talked about this in the offseason. He insinuated, he didn't report that I don't think they're going to play him. And I think a lot of people kind of agreed, like, just don't play him. I don't see how they don't play him, right? If he's ready to go, to me, he would make a stink. Like, I'm ready. What are we doing? You're paying me all this money. Now, they're so bad, even if they played him, they probably don't win that many more games. But it is fair to say, even coming off his worst season, like last season was really, really shitty, and it felt that way when I was watching it. His numbers, he's 14-7, 66%. Now, relative to his previous years, it looked a lot worse. But and clearly there's a lot of weird stuff going on with the Cardinals. But here's the thing with Kyler Murray. And this is what's fascinating. And I thought the moment they named him a team captain, to, I think, late August. I don't know when they officially named their team captain, but it was before week 1. I thought that was either two things. One, he legitimately has been an impressive guy in front of the new administration, right? When you get a new boss, when you get a new teacher, when you get a new, girlfriend, you kind of get to start over. And it doesn't really matter, regardless of what people said about you in the past. If you do a good job in front of that person, if everything that you say, you back up, you can turn that person into like, God, I really like this guy. I don't know what was going on before, but this person has been very, very impressive. This person has done everything I've asked them to do and more, gone above and beyond, right? Think how many people that you like, that you have a good relationship with, for whatever reason you get along with, interactive personally or professionally, that other people are like, God, I can't stand that guy. You're like, fuck, my interaction with the guy are great. I mean, it happens all the time. So I'm not putting Kyler past that, because last year was such an embarrassment. The Call of Duty clause, everyone shitting on him. Then he gets injured. Everyone gets fired. Like, it was pretty ugly. So I do think there's a chance that he just completely kind of hit the reset button and has been acting right. Or they already knew in the back of their mind, like, Russell Wilson's not tradable. I don't care how much money Denver eats. Nobody's going to want that guy as their quarterback. They're not going to want him in their building. They just won't. It's like what happened with Carson Wentz toward the end. It was like, yeah, this guy's toxic. No one wants this guy around. Kyler's not the case. He's still really young, and he is a big-time player. And, like, say what you want about him. When he's been right, he's been really good. And when he's been right, he's been a playoff-level player. Now, here's the concerning part. Obviously, he's coming off a torn ACL, but the previous year, he missed multiple games. I think it was a shoulder injury in 2021, the year that they made the playoffs and ultimately lost to the Rams in the Monday Night Football wildcard game. So I think the big question with him, if he has just turned the corner a little bit maturity-wise, which, let's face it, men mature a little later. Like, we're not super mature in our early mid-20s, even sometimes our late 20s. Hell, sometimes even in our early 30s. So it's not out of the realm of possibility for a guy to grow up a little bit. So I'm very fascinated how this Kyler Murray thing plays out. Here's what I know. If he is healthy and he wants to play, they're not going to have a choice. That they really aren't. And if for whatever reason they refuse, then obviously that would tell us everything they need to know, and his time in Arizona would be over. But I have a hard time. I think the PA would get involved. It would get weird fast. And obviously Arizona's under a lot of scrutiny with the new owner. You would have to think that Drake may. Obviously Caleb would be like, I don't want to fucking go there. It could get really weird really fast. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on. For a limited time, Verizon customers can get Netflix and NFL Plus for just $25 a month with Plus Play. That's $120 in annual savings. Plus Play is a platform where Verizon customers can shop, manage, and save on the subscriptions you already love, like Netflix and NFL Plus. With NFL Plus Premium, you get access to live games on mobile, NFL Red Zone, NFL Network, and more. Just go to Verizon.com/plusplay to bundle and save on Netflix and NFL Plus today for a limited time only. Okay, let's dive into Rodger Goddell, who just got a contract extension from the National Football League, 3 years that will take him up until he's 68 years old. And I think, let's use Adam Silver as an example, because I think he's the opposite of Rodger. Adam Silver, and I just follow a lot of, NBA media people on social media. I know several of them from the Bay Area. When he has talked about in media circles and the articles that are written, the way television talks about, it's very positive. He can never do anything wrong. Yet during his tenure, one of the biggest disasters we've ever seen in sports has happened. Guys don't play. What's happened? Ratings have fallen off a cliff. People do not watch the NBA how they did under David Stern, when the NBA was a behemoth, went toe-to-toe with the NFL for a lot of years of my life. And now under Adam Silver, one of the softest, worst, most overrated commissioners I've ever seen. I mean, we love shitting on Bud Selig's and Gary Bettman's. I'd put Adam Silver right there. But he's loved by the media, and specifically the NBA media, right? Which is a little different than the NFL media, which is no holds bar. That they don't care, friends, family, it doesn't matter. Football is covered just a lot like politics. It's just ferocious. And one thing with Rodger Goddell, is while the NFL under his watch, now I'm not giving him all the credit. I've always said that Peyton Manning and Tom Brady are the Larry Bird and Magic Johnson of my generation. Football was huge. They took it into another stratosphere. Now, Rodger, we'll talk about some of his accomplishments, but obviously made some terrible mistakes, right? It's hard to ever forget the whole Ray Rice situation, the concussions, which he gets blamed for. Really, he is a guy taking all the arrows. The owners are the ones making decisions. They're the ones that have to sign off. You know, when you get something delivered or something to your house and like, we can't drop it off unless someone signs, like Rodger Goddell, they're signing it. He's just out in front giving a thumbs up. So when you look at Rodger Goddell, ESPN turned on him and it became very, very negative, right? It's why they had such a poor relationship for a lot with Monday Night Football. It was like, you constantly talk shit about our league and our commissioner, and they were giving them bad games forever. It was really ugly, right? I mean, think about ESPN's biggest personality, or one of them during that time, Bill Simmons. I mean, they were going at it. So Rodger is not very good with the media. He's the opposite of Adam Silver. Terrible with it. Doesn't have a great personality for it. Kind of gruff. It's just not natural. Hell, on camera, he's not very natural. If he was a political candidate, he would be awful. Because when it comes to debates, when it comes to just shaking hands and kissing babies, he's not very smooth. But when it comes to getting things done, it can't really be debated how talented he is at his job. So when you look at what happened under Rodgers' watch, I mean, from a negotiating standpoint, they have dominated the players. I mean, absolutely destroyed them in 2 CBA negotiations, because the players have always, and I guess any commissioner could have handled this situation. They've always fought for things that don't have monetary value, right? We get mandatory day off, no double days. And the owners were always like, cool. More revenue for us, right? More money for us. The owners have always been obsessed with the money, where the players get kind of emotional. Like, you got to give us 6 days off during a bye week, mandatory. The owners are like, cool, take it. But only 3 straight days during training camp and practice, no double days. You guys got it. That's another point on our side, revenue-wise. And they always dominated those, kind of conversations. And let's face it, Rodger was the head point man with the other NFL lawyers. So the Thursday Night Football, which everyone seems to talk shit about, has been a raging success. I remember before I worked in the NFL, Thursday Night Football was usually a random college football game. I couldn't tell you the last time I watched a college football game on Thursday. I'm not saying that they don't happen. They clearly do. They're just never on my television, just like they're never on most people's television. Why? Because even when the NFL went to streaming Amazon, a year into it, they're getting 13, 14 million people watching these games. And it's everything Rodger has done financially for the league has had massive, massive benefits. Obviously, the international play, adding the game. And I'm not saying these are all his ideas, but he's been the leader. He shepherded. And the NFL hasn't separated from the other sports. It's in a different universe than the other sports right now. That there is no competition for the NFL. Honestly, there's no competition on TV for the NFL, sports or non-sports. So Rodgers clearly paid, a king's ransom. I'm sure some big J's will write articles how that shouldn't take place. Part of the deal when you run a 10, 15, $20 billion operation, that's why CEOs get paid so much money. That's kind of the going rate, 40, 50, 35, whatever $million. And listen, Rodgers kind of a different cat, clearly not very smooth, but when it comes to just operations and decisions, it's hard to argue that he hasn't been one of the most successful commissioners, definitely someone my age has ever seen. And last but not least, Caleb Williams. There was a story that Florio pointed out, resurfaced. I saw it for the first time. I don't remember it being written in the summer, but reading Florio's article, he claimed he broke it in, the middle of the summer, that Caleb Williams' representation, his agents, or maybe when he was interviewing agents, one of the big things he was going to do is ask for equity in a team. And Florio wrote that, and listen, I don't blame Aaron Rodgers. I think looking back, one of the reasons the Aaron Rodgers trade took so long, and I don't blame Aaron at all. because anyone in any industry, when you have the opportunity to, and have leverage, you better take advantage of it. Because every negotiation or every time that you are talking money with an employer, with a partner, you're not going to have leverage. So when you do have it, you got to take advantage of it. Aaron Rodgers wanted equity in the Jets as part of the trade and his compensation. The problem is the NFL does not allow that. That is in the bylaws. It's not even possible, which does make some sense, because what you would be able to do with a guy like Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady, which who knows, my Kraft and Tom Brady might have been doing it. If I'm going to pay Aaron Rodgers, let's just pick a number, $50 million. I go, hey, I'll pay you $12 million in salary, and I'll give you the other 38 in equity. And you would be able to bypass the salary cap. And then, within 10 years, if that was legal, the running backs would be like, why can't we get in the equity? It's like, yeah, no equity for the running backs. But in all seriousness, I understand why Aaron Rodgers and his people would want that. Like, he had all the leverage. Caleb Williams, reports are, and who knows, sometimes this stuff gets lost in translation. Sometimes you just throw things out there. I never blame anybody for asking. What was the worst you're ever going to hear when you ask for something? No. Here's the problem for Caleb Williams. Just big picture going into this draft. You don't negotiate when you're a drafted player. Now, we'll see who gets the number 1 overall pick, whether he wants to play there or not. And that's, if he doesn't want to, listen, that's his prerogative. Other athletes have done it. One of the most famous quarterbacks of all time, John Elway, did it. Obviously, Peyton's brother did it. Eli Manning, you probably heard of him too. But if Caleb wants to do that, I don't care. Now, it depends on who the team is. To me, the problem with some of the ways I've heard that talked about, like, you're not going to the Chiefs or the Bills. Like, that's not an option. Like in the NBA, it's like, I don't want forever. And listen, I saw it firsthand. No one ever wanted to go to the Sacramento Kings. It's like, God, I would love to go to the Lakers. I would love to go to whoever, whatever good team is. Well, in basketball, like, multiple guys can be on the court at the same time. In football, if I got Patrick Mahomes or I got Josh Allen, like, not only am I not trading up to get you, you wouldn't even play here. But here's the problem for Caleb and just this mindset. If one thing I always heard, knowing some people who have recruited him, may even been around him for a year, his dad plays a big role in all this, and which is not abnormal for collegiate athletes. But like, once you get to the pros, I'm sorry, GMs, owners, coaches, like, no one gives a shit what your parent thinks. Especially if you have an aggressive parent, even if he has some validity to some of the things you're saying. Like, it's a business. It's very cutthroat. And the dad, in fairness, is going to be very emotional. It's his son. So when they ask for equity, like, you could ask for anything. You could ask for the fucking moon. The contract's the contract. That's the CBA. That's the NFL's business. And the business, they're not ripping up the CBA for Caleb Williams. And here's the other thing. Caleb Williams, even if you could give him equity, for every Bryce Harper, for every LeBron James, for every Peyton Manning, there are a ton of people in drafts in every sport that don't even come close to living up the hype. So even if I could give equity, which I can't as an owner, it wouldn't be that I wouldn't be giving it out to draft picks, right? I think you're seeing this in NIL. For every NIL guy that hits, right, a Caleb Williams, Michael Penix, there are a lot of guys getting paid in college that aren't producing. And I'll promise you this, all these rich people all across the country cutting these checks, it's one thing giving you 50 grand in cash in a brown bag. It's another thing. I start paying you 500 grand and we're winning 5-6 games and you're not making plays. It ain't the same. But Caleb doesn't get to negotiate. That's not how rookie contracts work. Here's the rookie contract. Sign it. We can, I guess, negotiate the dates of the payouts of your guaranteed money. But the contract, the money is the money. What Bryce Young got this year, no matter how much he negotiated, the number would not have changed. It's impossible for it to change. It's contractually obligated for it to be what it was. But the other thing that keeps coming out with Caleb, and listen, he's an excellent prospect. He really is. But like an all-time prospect, hard for me to say that for a guy that's under 6'1". And listen, if I pulled all 32 GMs, said on your draft board right now is Caleb Williams number 1, I bet on the 20 plus, at least coming as we sit here on October 18th, he would be number 1. But there are some teams that would have Drake May. And there's a chance, if this gets ugly, USC is going in a tough stretch of their schedule. He plays like he just did. Who knows? Maybe that number gets closer to half. I don't know. Seems unlikely. I'm not saying it's going to. But this guy is not like Trevor Lawrence. 32 teams had Trevor Lawrence number 1. There was no close second. right? Andrew Luck. 32 teams had Andrew Luck number one. That's not going to be the case here. So really good prospect, and I get this a lot from my NFL buddies. The hype machine on him sometimes jumps the shark a little bit. We just saw him against Notre Dame. It was pretty embarrassing. Not all his fault, offensive line bad. And this is not trying to shit on Caleb Williams, but this negotiation, like we're going to want equity, which again, story that Florio reported, but just the overall notion, there is no negotiation when you're a rookie. Here's the contract. This is what you get. But the one negotiation that will be very quick, could he go back to school? Like, could USC round up $10 million? Yeah, maybe they could. Do you know how much Bryce Young got the moment he signed his contract? $37 million. That's how much Bryce Young's 4-year contract guaranteed. And at signing, I think within 14 days, he got like $25 million to sign. So even if you get, God, they gave him $10 million to return. It is not better than what the NFL gives you. And here's the other thing the NFL gives you. If Caleb gets drafted and becomes a good player, the moment you start your clock, it's faster to your second contract. So the conversation around Caleb, I got to admit, is kind of getting a little exhausting. I'm sure some of you that are listening saw the clip of the Notre Dame guy, the fan that ran on the field, which, listen, I would never have a problem if a fan ran on the field, started screaming at a player, and the player fucking decked him. Like, I'm sorry, you run on the field, you're talking shit, it's free game. So if that ever happens, I'm cool with it. But the fan did run up to him and say what he did last year, which he was constantly doing, which is something that is a pretty big red flag. He wrote "fuck Notre Dame," just like he wrote "fuck Utah" when he got beat twice. Now, I don't think he's doing that anymore, but, I think we need to pump the brakes on some of these salacious stories around Caleb, and he's just the greatest thing since sliced bread. Really good player, really good prospect. Start asking for equity. It's like, bro, you're not Patrick Mahomes yet. Like, you got to prove it. Like, that's part of getting to the big leagues. Plus, it's not even an option. You might be a pro when it comes to what you do, but we can't all be pros at everything. Take home repairs, remodeling, and renovations. That's not something you want to trust to anyone but a skilled professional. Angie's List is now Angie. Connect with a local pro, tackle jobs big and small, inside and out. Decks, leaky faucets, maybe redoing a kitchen. I know I can relate. It's not easy, and you want people you can trust. The Angie app offers robust tools so you can research and connect with local pros who come highly rated and recommended by people right in your neighborhood, all with a few taps of a button. Download the free Angie mobile app today or visit Angie.com. That's ANGI.com.